Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Making It Into the Map Pack. My name is Crystal Tang, the Director of Local Search at Rio SEO, and I will be your moderator today. If this is your first time joining our monthly webinar series, we want to thank you for taking the time out of your day and hopping on with us. We do these once a month, always on different industry topics with new guests. So today, we've really been fortunate to have some great industry experts joining us. First, we have Al Safati on the line from Ninth Wonder Agency. Hey, Al, how are you?
Hey, hello everyone. Pretty good, thank you.
Awesome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're dialing in from, and really what makes SEO and local so interesting to you?
Sure. I've been doing SEO for about 15 years, off and on. And I started as a web developer and then started building websites. And then I realized that I need to build traffic to those sites. And after a few years of being self-employed, I decided to work for other agencies and in-house on the client side as well. Currently, I work for Ninth Wonder. There's a little bit of just want to make sure clarify. I'm not a founder of Ninth Wonder. I just work there, and I do a little bit of consulting on the side. We at Ninth Wonder here we have a lot of multi-location businesses here. The smallest one has 70 locations. We have one with hundreds, near 1,000 locations. So there's a lot of local SEO involved. We do a lot of different things at the local level, from Google My Business optimization to on-page hyper-local content optimization, and all the off-page things. And I enjoy SEO because compared to other marketing channels, it is still one of the most effective and cheaper channels if you were to compare it to paid search or paid social or other type of marketing channels. And it's very rewarding and it's very helpful for the users.
Great, thank you so much for joining us. Next up, we have local SEO expert and our dear friend Carrie Hill from Igniter Digital. Hey, Carrie, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Crystal. Hi, Al. Thanks for having me.
Of course, and Carrie's the co-founder of Igniter Digital Marketing and the community manager for Local U, which if anyone's in local and hasn't checked out a Local U event, haven't listened to Last Week in Local, like there's so much interesting information. I can't get enough from it, so definitely something I recommend. Carrie's been in the SEO game since 2006 and has spoken at over 30 events in the last 13 years, so we're definitely lucky to have her join us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what got you hooked on local, Carrie?
So actually, it was Mary, my business partner, Mary Bowling, who is one of the founders of Local University, and she was actually my mentor. She taught me SEO. We both worked at the same agency, and we worked together there for a while. She left and worked for a few other companies while I stayed, and then when I left, we sort of tried to figure out what we wanted to do, and it kind of was kismet. We were both kind of at loose ends at the same time, and so we thought, well, let's do our thing. And Mary was already in local. I was more of a technical SEO at that point in time. I did a lot of semantic and schema work as it was kind of developing, and a lot of content optimization, those types of things. And so Mary kind of brought me into the local SEO piece, and we developed our agency with a little bit different model. We don't have retainer clients. We do all audits for the most part. Okay, I take that back. I have 2 retainer clients, but for the most part, we do audits from single location businesses to multi-location businesses. I come at local from a little bit different standpoint than I think both of you guys do. I don't have any enterprise kind of management experience. A lot of our clients are low budget, like they couldn't afford a retainer engagement, so they have us do the audit and they use that for their marketing plan, those types of clients. But we see a lot of weird messes that we help them clean up. So that's kind of our path. But yeah, so I kind of come at it from the auditing side, like how do we fix what's wrong, how do we make this better, kind of approach to local search.
That's awesome. Again, thanks for joining us today, and sounds like a pretty good leap for you into local. So just a few items for all of the guests today before we get started. If you have any questions throughout the chat, please feel free to send them through the webinar feature on your screen. We'll try our best to kind of loop them into the conversation. But if we don't answer them during the live webinar, we will just shoot you some responses afterwards via email. So we worked through a fun agenda for you guys today. We're going to go through some of the top GMB optimizations that you can implement either now or work into your 2020 local strategy. Really, these will help you push the dial and get your locations into the map pack. But like you've heard, we have a really super smart panelist today, so hopefully to share some good things. Before we dive in, because it is, Hallows Eve, we did want to start our discussion today with a little spooky and Halloween trivia. We want to get everyone warmed up, and we want all of the panelists to participate as well. So we hope you'll send your answers into the chat box, and then obviously Alan, Carrie, wondering kind of what your answers are. The first trivia question we'll get into today is that every 18 to 19 years, the full moon falls on Halloween. So what year is the next full moon that falls on Halloween? I had no idea either. I thought like I thought recently there was one, so I was like, maybe it's 2035. But I was really wrong on this one whenever when I found out what the answer is. And we have a few folks saying we'll go ahead and give the answer. The year that it is 2020. We did get an answer. I hope you didn't Google, but yes, 2020 is the next full moon. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, the next question we have is Transylvania is a region of which country?
It's Germany, right? Or Slovak,
Ooh, we did already get a right answer, a couple right answers. It is Romania. I had no idea either. All right, and then the last trivia question is the blockbuster movie Halloween was filmed in how many weeks?
No clue. I've never seen it.
I have not seen it either.
I can't watch those movies. That's like 2 weeks worth of nightmares for me.
Yeah.
I'm like a hocus pocus Halloween kind of girl.
I love it. Oh, we have another right answer. We had a couple that were close, but it was 20 days. So right around 4 weeks is when it was filmed, which I think based on the production seems realistic because it looks like very home movie style. But yeah, I didn't know any of those. I wasn't even close. All right, awesome. So we'll go ahead and jump into the content now. Before we start talking about specific ways to optimize GMB, let's talk a little bit about why. Like, why are we talking about Google My Business? Why are we always talking about Google My Business? And why can you not talk about local without talking about GMB? So one of the things I think, Carrie, to discuss is your take on GMB being the new homepage. We've heard this for a long time now, and I think that this is just growing more and more true with all of the updates every quarter. It seems like, Mike was truly predicting the future whenever he kind of said this, but kind of where do you stand on this?
I absolutely think it's true. I think that, your branded search has replaced the phone book, right? People don't even, I leave mine on the mailbox kiosk. I don't even bring it home. So when I need a phone number, I Google a brand, and that is the homepage of your website. Now, the goal, of course, is to get them to make contact with you. And the best way to do that is via, making sure that your GMB is up to date. It has a correct phone number. It has the right website link, that you're tracking. That's so important. But, I think it's really funny because in the last year or so, more mainstream SEOs have been just freaking out about this zero-click search thing. And I think when Rand Fishkin first started talking about it, I tweeted back at him, I'm like, local's been dealing with this for like 5 years, dude. Where have you been? Like, this is how it is, right? And so the goal then is to own all that real estate for your branded search, or as much as you possibly can. And GMB is a huge part of what shows up when you Google a brand. That's your new homepage. And you have to make sure that your competitors can't horn in on that, or even third-party sites that could lead to a competitor, right? Because you want to be Barnacle and you want to have a listing in those third-party sites, but if you can get a bigger listing for your own site with site links or something like that and push those third parties down a little bit, there's more real estate that you can capture the lead from right there above the fold. So I think it's immensely important to have your GMB claimed, fully updated, like to the nth degree, as much as you can possibly fill in that thing.
Yeah, 100% agree. Like, Al, what would you say is, one of the biggest effects or responses to these like no-click searches in relation to GMB?
Well, I think as Google pivots their interface and their technology so they can serve the users better, so more and more users continue to use Google as their search engine. And as more and more users are using their mobile devices to search, fast loading pages are very important. That's why Google is always, and Google is completely in control of your GMB because that's really their property. It's their website. It's your profile on their website. So it's very important for you to keep a close eye on your GMB and every like Gary said, just from your hours to your phone number to any updates that you have about your business. Google allows you to put posts and events and things like that in Google My Business, and not to the point you abuse it, but to the point that it benefits your users. From this perspective, I highly recommend to do that. And if you have a multi-location business, you have to do it in such ways that you can scale. So it's a little bit harder if you're dealing with like 400 locations, and if you have a business that has 200 locations or even 100 locations. So you definitely have to use some sort of automation for that. I'm 100% agreement with Gary. It's a new homepage, especially for branded search and some non-branded search, as you can see above on the localized searches. I was looking for hair transplant today, just one of our clients. That's what they focus on, and none of the searches. Basically, there was like 3 ads, and then 3 local listings, and a paid local listing, and then all the other organic results are also very localized. So it's very important for you to keep a close eye on it. And there was a part of the question that I may not have answered. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. We definitely seen something very similar. I think, when we were running data earlier this year, because we're managing GMB profiles for our clients, as well as, managing websites and locator pages. And we see on average that you're going to get 69 more views on your GMB listing to every one click to your website. Which is crazy. Like, obviously that stat right there is like, telling you how important that listing is. If you have 69 people looking at your GMB and only one on your website, does your GMB represent and provide enough information and branding and excitement to those users that are never going to get to your website? So I think that stat there just really solidifies all of the information saying, hey, GMB is your new homepage. You need to be thinking about that as the front door to your brand, to represent your business, your services, your products to all of those people that are never going to see your website.
Well, and unfortunately, it's editable and not just by the business, right? So you guys, I'm sure, run into this a lot more than I do, but any user with a Google account can change a phone number or suggest a change to a phone number or move a map pin or change an address or change a business name. Like, all of those things can happen. And if you're not monitoring, one location is a lot easier to monitor than 400 locations. And so that, you have to stay on top of those things, because all of a sudden some jerk goes in and changes your phone number and Google doesn't catch that it's not a kosher change, and your competitors are getting all your phone calls. So
yeah, that's definitely a really big consideration, alongside of making sure that your GMB profile is fully optimized and representative of your brand. Like, monitor it for malicious edits by users or third-party data or wherever Google gets all of this random information for that conflicts with your actual business info.
One thing very quick I'd like to add is that there's that battle between organic technical SEO and local SEO is no longer there. You have to look at it more holistically, and if you there are people that like rant fishing, like Gary mentioned earlier, are talking against it. No, embrace it. Google is providing a free service for you by providing Google My Business. One of our clients, they get majority of their local calls from the Gmb, and they don't visit the website, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, it's this calls and this business that you want, not necessarily this traffic to your website. So embrace it, optimize it, and continue monitoring it, because it's very important that since anyone can edit it or make recommendations, and you want to make sure that you approve or disapprove it.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect point to kind of talk about setting your KPIs and your metrics, which for one business, no matter the size, is going to vary from another business. And I think that's a great point of saying is like maybe phone calls are going to be more valuable to a business than, clicks to a website. And that could be based on your business model. Any kind of things you can carry in terms of like metrics or what's been successful or considerations to keep in mind.
Well, I think that anybody who's really concerned about business should be tracking calls. And if you're not tracking calls, they're disappearing into an unknown for you. And especially from your Gmb profile, right? So if you don't know who's calling you and what you did with that phone call, if it just comes into your main line, what caused that phone call to happen? What prompted it? What kind of a query goes along with that phone call? I think that, tracking phone calls for most businesses, I wrote an article on Local U a couple of years ago that was, I don't care how the phone rings. I just want it to ring, right? Nobody cares.
Yeah.
My locksmith client, he could care less if they visit his website. It's 5 pages. He says, I don't care if they go there. I just want them to call me.
Yeah.
So,
I've reduced my monthly reports to calls and goals and conversions, not so much on rankings even, unless the client asks for it, because that's what organic traffic and local traffic are supposed to do, bring business. Now, if you're let's say a local newspaper and you want those page views because you want to sell advertising, then that's a different conversation. But for most of the local businesses that want walk-ins, that want calls, that want appointments, if you're a personal injury lawyer and you need to be there at the right time, when the customer is looking for your service. So it doesn't matter where they come from, as long as they come.
Yeah, no. We do have a couple questions coming in, so I want to make sure we address them. One of them was on the edits, and this user is asking, can anyone actually change it? I believe they can only suggest edits, and then the owner can approve or deny it. That's partially true, but Google, if they trust the edit, and the word trust is like, I'm doing air quotes here because I don't know what Google thinks with some of these edits when someone's trying to remove a URL from a business listing and just crazy stuff. It is a suggestion, but most of them go live if you're not reviewing them within 24 hours, and you also don't get notified. You don't get notified when a suggestion's been made. So you can decline it. Unfortunately, if you're a multi-location brand and you've got an enterprise account, a lot of those can't be bulk declined. You just kind of have to resubmit your data and overwrite those suggested changes. But in a lot of scenarios, these changes are getting live to the listing. And the way it'll look is displayed on Gmb is it'll be gray data directly live, whether it's mobile or desktop, and it'll say a user suggested these changes, and it's inviting more users to validate that data. I think Google's kind of structured that more to be inclusive of users versus the business. They don't notify the business. They, make it kind of hard to decline it if you have more than one location, but they're actively inviting more users to provide their opinion.
I think their intent was to crowdsource information and crowdsource the trust of that information. Unfortunately, they must live in this rose-colored room where they think nobody's going to abuse things like that. Because it happens all the time. You see it, I see it. I'm still fighting. I have a listing. Their tracking codes disappear constantly. It's not a third-party thing that's feeding into them. I don't know who's submitting maybe the business owner thinks that the URL is messed up, and so he keeps changing it. I don't know. I'm fighting with it.
There's also a lot of competitors are trying to kind of pull you down, and And we, one of our clients is a personal injury attorney, and he struggles a lot to just keep his Google My Business up, and they're all legit. He has multiple applications, and just because he has the word accident lawyer in his name, and they suspend his Google My Business listings, and there's always been a battle. That's why what I asked my team here at Nice Wonder is that we're going to have to do, we're going to rely on automation tools such as Rio SEO, but also we're going to have to do a weekly hygiene all of our local, all of our GMBs to make sure everything is exactly where it is. And it's a very time-consuming thing to do, but it's very important because I just want to share with you an example. A couple weeks ago with my family, we were looking for Rubio's, my favorite, taco shop here in California, and we asked Siri to direct us to Rubio's, except they took us to a place that was closed. Now, if Rubio's, whoever that works over there, I don't want to get them in trouble, but if they actually did the hygiene, they actually marked it closed, then we wouldn't go to a closed location. So I think those things are really important, and you just want to. It's monitoring. It's very tactical, but it's very. You might think it's not important, but it is, and it can cost a lot of money. I mean, that weekend probably Rubio just lost thousands of dollars. I know they'll probably lost $60 from me. So it can cost you money if the data isn't correct. If for any reason you forget, if someone edits your, a lot of competitors unfortunately do that in some of the industries, like personal injuries happens all the time, and you just have to stay on top of it and make sure that you keep monitoring.
Well, and that goes to, so your GMB gets edited, the address is wrong or the information is wrong, it gets picked up by an aggregator of some sort that scraped that GMB listing information, it goes somewhere else, it gets spread all over the place incorrectly, it ends up in Apple Maps Connect wrong because that's what Siri's sourcing for that information. And so you can't just go in and delete and change. Like, you're now going to have to spend a whole bunch of time fixing this stuff because it was wrong, it got picked up, it got fed out somewhere, and now you got to clean it all up. So, being proactive in cleaning things up and monitoring can save so much time and money over just being reactive to things that are broken.
Yeah, I can't reiterate that point enough. Like, yes, we do have APIs and yes, we do have automation, but I don't think we would do service to any of our clients if there wasn't a highly manual touch point specifically for GMB. Like, if 90 to 95% of your traffic, your conversions are coming from Google, why not spend that much of effort when it comes to a local management program? So, like, our team constantly reviewing those suggested updates, declining them, accepting them, looking at duplicates, looking at edits, all of those things are incredibly important.
For sure.
All right. We have a couple questions about service area businesses on Google My Business. Not sure how familiar you are. We have a couple. But one is kind of like a general question about maximizing presence on GMB for a service area business. Do you guys have kind of any familiarity? I know it is. It's almost like makes you not like want to follow the guidelines, quite honestly, for service area businesses. But I think Google's listening and they're making small changes that don't seem yet to have an impact, but I hope that's their intention for them to be impactful eventually.
I think it really depends upon your market and your competition. If you are competing against brick and mortars that have a location that can legally be claimed and displayed, and you're a service area business and you don't see customers at your business location, you're going to struggle because you're probably not going to show up in the map pack. You're going to show up for branded search. It's absolutely worth claiming and having your GMB for sure. I think you really have to kind of fall back on the organic and the barnacle SEO pieces if you are a service area business, because the map pack is going to be super difficult for you if you have any competition that has that brick and mortar opportunity.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think in service area and service-based businesses, GMB may be secondary in most cases. Like, you definitely can't do GMB alone. It's important, but I definitely think it has to be complemented with on-page elements, link building, and a ton of other, holistic SEO solutions.
Yep, I agree.
And I agree as well. It kind of goes back to my earlier comments that, there's very little separation between, organic and local SEO these days, and you just have to kind of combine this strategy and see which one works better for your business.
Yeah, I agree. Another question specific to service area businesses is putting radiuses based on zip codes or postcodes or city names. Kind of, have you guys had any experience with the varying versions of those?
So you can't do radiuses anymore, but you can put like cities and postcodes in, right? And so I always recommend putting as many of those in there as the area you serve. If there's 400 different zip codes in the area you serve, put them all in there. Like, I think you have to get as much in there as you can. I think you need to be really creative in your description in describing where you do business. I think you need to use your products and services creatively and your posts creatively, even your Q&A, to really convey to the searcher who's hitting that branded search that, yeah, you do business in their area. Then you have to reinforce all of that content from your GMB on your location page.
Yeah.
And I think organically, a lot of people don't like this strategy, but I think if you really truly want to do business in a city where you don't have a brick and mortar, you have to have a page on your website about that location. And that doesn't mean faking an address. It means saying, hey, we did this project, here's a testimonial, and here's some more information about projects we do in this area and how often we're there. And there's all kinds of strategies around mentioning other cities, which I think you have to employ for your service area business.
Absolutely. I think we see that often is, maybe a business has 50 brick and mortar locations, but that can be, hundreds of service areas, thousands of service areas. So I think we've leaned more on zip codes, primarily because although Google's expanded their offering to include like cities or counties or states, not a lot of other sites have, so we kind of like to keep it in sync. I would say in Google, if you're going to do cities and postcodes and bundle those ones up if you have a super granular service area. But it's kind of rough, and you kind of have to test things out with service area businesses.
Yeah, because I fully agree that competition and like your geo area and how much competition you have affects it greatly, a lot.
Yeah. Definitely.
I think one of the things that can also give you competitive edge is, off-page things that you may be able to do that can, a lot of your local competitors that have brick and mortar shops may not invest in, citation buildings or reviews and things like that. So if you ask your clients to give reviews, and if you continue, creating more citations and maximize the features in Google My Business, your Google posts and all that things, and make it hyper, that should really help. But yes, it's gonna be tough competing with the one locations. But always figure out what they're not doing that you can do. If it's more reviews, then so be it. Ask your clients to leave you more reviews. So that could be a strategy.
I think community building for a service area business can be hugely important, and encouraging and building those brand ambassadors for you, because your brand searches are what's going to save you there, right? So any way you can get other people to talk about your brand is going to be beneficial for your business when you can't rely on a physical address for that proximity piece of the local algorithm.
Exactly. A few other questions about some GMB elements. One of my favorite that I'll always ask every time, and I still get it, is can you bulk upload posts for multiple locations? If you're designated a chain by Google, no matter how many locations you have, it's still not available, unfortunately. It would be great, but I'm not even holding my breath anymore for beverage. So manual is the way to go there. And then they're asking, do product posts expire? And those ones you can set a date. So they'll stay up as long as you have the date there. And then they'll stay, as long as you don't delete the post, they'll stay in your carousel, as I think forever now, displayed on there.
But on some of those like event and product and offer posts, when you put the date in, it reduces the amount of
text.
that shows, right? So you have to balance that. Like, can you get your point across? And I think you get like 1, maybe 2 lines if you put a date in there. So you have to kind of decide, is it worth it is it worth putting a date on here, because I have to really be succinct in what I want to say now. And so, you have to test it. I think you have to test it to see what the right.
That's a great point. Like oftentimes what we do is like if we're loading a Google post, we like load one, we take screenshots on desktop, we take screenshots on mobile, we take it expanded, and just make sure there's no weird areas, there's no image cropping, depending on the number of posts, it's definitely you got to try it out and see what works. Sorry,
that's a really good point too, is looking at mobile for sure.
Yeah. Sorry, Al, were you going to say something?
No, I just say 300%.
Yeah, awesome. All right. And then another, I think people hate these suggested edits. Another question. I'm declining a suggested edit and it comes back within 30 minutes, which I've seen, which I believe, again, this is just me understanding kind of how the search ecosystem works and where Google's getting this information. I imagine they're likely, in that case, getting it from third-party data. I highly doubt that a user saw you decline that suggested edit and resuggest it within 30 minutes. If they must be really bored if that's the case. But there's likely third-party data at play. And in that case, like if it keeps coming back, like just double check everywhere you have your data listed to make sure the attributes are in line if they're available. But that's something unfortunately, you have to reach out to Google My Business support. If you chat them or reach out to them on Twitter, if they aren't helpful, just get a case ID and then post it on the Google My Business forum. That's like the most important in escalating it if support hasn't been helpful. But if it's a reoccurring one, then Google has to do something about it.
I think you got to investigate where the source of that is coming from. And so if you like search your brand plus that incorrect information, you might be able to find like an aggregator or a directory site or something that has that wrong data and get it fixed at the source. Will Google tell you where they're getting it from? They won't,
unless you go to the ends of the earth and you get an ads rep involved and all this stuff, like your likelihood of them telling you where they're getting that data is not. They might say third-party source, and sometimes that's said when maybe a rep isn't super clear on the guidelines, but you're likely not going to find out from them. So I agree. Like alongside reaching out to Google, it's like do your own due diligence, search, find out where that data is coming from. Wish you luck, because sometimes I have no idea.
I think we say that a lot with Google.
Yeah. I'm like, this might work. I have no idea. Okay, a quick question about description and maybe the importance of using localized keywords and specific, services and stuff in your description. Do you guys have kind of familiarity with that and guidance?
I think you should optimize it, but don't make it like gross, blatant optimization. I think it should still be readable. That's my opinion.
Right. What we did for multi-location is we created one description and basically put a city, and we just swapped out the city name. So basically, you don't want it to be too far off, too over spammy. But yeah, you do, to answer your question, go ahead and add some localization. It's just going to be hard to manage and scale if you have, like, let's say, hundreds and hundreds of locations. But yeah, it won't hurt if you don't overdo it.
Yeah, I would say with your description, like keep it simple. But I think Carrie, you were on one of the last weekend local or deep dives with Willis. One of the kind of content feedback was like write in the voice of the person interacting with your customers. Like what would they say about your business? What would they say about this location? Like where to find us? What's important? What makes us unique? If you're going to put in the effort to localize these and add keywords, like write in that voice, I think is likely most critical.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think that, you can use that tactic for your location pages as well. I love location pages that mention the staff that works in that location. Who's the manager? How long have they been there? What makes them an expert on the service or the product that you sell? What landmarks are nearby? So I know if I'm in the right place, like, oh yeah, we're like right under the bridge in Brooklyn, so if you're not there, you're in the wrong spot, kind of thing. I think that you can use lots of different tactics to humanize and localize your content without it looking like a list of spammy keyword bullshit like people used to do. I hate that stuff.
Yeah, I have a hard time reading any. So I always keep that in mind. Like if I got this in, because oftentimes if I get an email that's just a bunch of paragraphs, I'm like, oh, got to save that one for later. So simple and to the point. All right. So one thing we haven't touched on yet, which I know is top of mind for most brands, small and large, every industry, are reviews and their importance with GMB alongside Google My Business Q&A. So maybe we'll start with reviews and kind of, I'm pretty sure both, Carrie and Al, you'll say they're important, pay attention to them, invest staff and resources. But any kind of tidbits, like if someone has trouble with responding to reviews, asking for reviews, what have you guys seen successful for your clients and brands?
Sure. Well, basically, it needs to be organic. I don't like those emails that you send out to clients. It needs to, part of what you have to do as an SEO consultant is to train your client to do some of this stuff. From the way I see it, some of this stuff cannot be automated. If it is, you're probably going to get poor results. It's really a human outreach. If you have a happy client, ask them for a review, and don't tell them what to send reviews. Just ask them for a fair review, and it works. It works for my own little shop. I've asked for plenty of reviews, and everybody is more than happy to send a review, and they tend to put a 5-star. But in my language, I never ask to leave a 5-star. I'm like, hey, leave a fair review if you like my work. I know for larger enterprises that's not feasible, but if you can invest in it, have someone from customer service. I think it's really a customer service thing. I don't like those emails that I get, leave us a review, almost delete all of them. So I think it's a human factor to asking for reviews. Now, I mean, you may not agree with that. You may have worked for you in the past, but part of what I find is to train my clients to this in terms of, franchise owners and whatnot, is that, just ask for reviews, ask for if they're happy, here's, this, go ahead and leave us a review. And it's hard, but if you can gain reviews that way, it's very organic and it will stick. If you use one of those automated, and I'm saying this straight from experience, even if they're legit, a lot of times they might get flagged. Google may suspend your listings. Like all of a sudden, after 2 months, you have like 200 reviews. And if it doesn't feel like organic, you're asking for trouble. So, get a little creative. It doesn't have to be following the system. I know different businesses may have they interact with customers differently. So figure out what's the best way to reach out to your client. Don't make it very templated. I think asking for reviews is a favorite. They don't have to do it, but if they do it, I think so. I guess the human element, however you want to do it. I just personally don't like emails that ask for reviews. So I usually ignore most of those.
I approach it a little bit more hybrid. I do like the tools that we use to manage asking for and responding to reviews, because I think that it can get overwhelming, especially for multi-location businesses or high volume businesses. So I like a hybrid. I like to verbally ask or prompt my clients to verbally ask for the review and then let them know what to expect. Great. I'm going to send you an email in a day or so that'll make it really easy. You just have to click on something and write a review for me. I really appreciate your honest feedback. And I think that works very well from not making it too impersonal corporate feeling, but also being able to like leverage tools, manage it and track it and see what you get reviews on. And I think how you ask is important. I think making it a personal ask. So, Jerry told us he had a really great experience fixing your furnace yesterday. We'd love to hear your feedback, because we're always interested in, ways that you can put the technician or the clerk's name in there to make it more personal, because the psychology of it is, if you give them the words in the ask, they're more likely to give you the words back in the reply, right? So I think that there's a lot you can do in the way you ask for reviews that makes people feel like they're really helping you out. And it also extends the relationship. So a lot of businesses think once they pay your bill, or a lot of customers think once they pay the bill, it's over. They'll never hear from you again. But if you keep that conversation going with them, and you help build that relationship, the next time they need a plumber, they're going to call you, or the next time they need to get their car fixed, they're going to come back because they remember your name, because they felt like you asked and gave feedback, and they gave the feedback and you appreciated it. I think the number one rule to reviews is, if somebody gives you one, you say thank you. Please say thank you to the people who are giving you feedback on your business.
I love that. I think the point that you said about being specific in the way you ask, saying like, how was our service? How was your delivery time? Like, how was, specifics of that is a great way to try and get content. That was a question about how do you get reviews with actual content versus just stars. I think sometimes people just leaving the stars or getting prompted by Google. It's like, you visited this place 3 days ago. Can you leave a review? Whereas I think people that are driven to leave content had a positive, or, unfortunately in some cases a negative experience, remembered something about that visit, about that interaction with you. I think for me as a consumer, that's what's going to drive me to leave a review. If I go in a store and have a perfectly fine experience, I don't know that I'm going to go and leave a review without being prompted by someone or something. But if I went in and someone was incredibly helpful, or went out of their way, or just like made contact with me, that's what's going to drive me to leave a review. And maybe at that they say, hey, would you mind like just commenting about my service, on Google, on wherever else, they want to gather these reviews. I would say yes, but I honestly can't tell you the last time that happened to me, asking me to say leave a review. And it's just something so small that really could be incredibly impactful. So another question about reviews, of course, self-serving reviews being removed from organic SERPs. This specific question says, why would Google remove them from organic listings but keep them on Gmb? In my opinion, this is kind of Google's definition of self-serving. Obviously, Google's the ultimate self-serving one in this case, but essentially they think if the review is about the business on which the review star is displayed on, that's what's self-serving. So even if you're using a third party to gather them, if they're about store ABC and they're displayed on store ABC's site, that's what self-serving is. Despite it being displayed on Yelp and on Google and TripAdvisor and wherever else is getting stars, that's what Google's distinction is. It's new. I think everyone disagrees, but
I think it's an extension of the review gating rules. So they said don't use review gating. So don't only ask happy customers, or don't only show 5-star reviews, right? But people still abuse it all the time. Most websites that show their own reviews, they're not going to show the bad ones. They're only going to show the good ones. And so Google said, well, if you're not going to comply with review gating, we're going to take your stars away. And so I think it's an extension of that, because it wasn't good enough to just say, hey, don't do this, because they couldn't police it. So this is something they can police. I think it's kind of garbage. I still think you should absolutely have reviews and testimonials and mark them up on your website, because the whole world is not about Google. But, getting those stars at the third parties that show up for your branded search on your new homepage is that much more important, right? Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So I know we got through a ton of time. There's a few other questions. We'll respond to you guys all via email. And then just so everyone knows, we will have a recording of the webinar, a recap, where we'll add, points from Al and Carrie and myself about optimizing Gmb. You can find it on our website. Again, if you registered, we'll send you out the email. But thanks again. Thanks, Al. Thanks, Carrie, for joining us. Carrie, staying warm, hopefully. I know you said it was 4 degrees there today. And we'll try to stay, it's very low humidity here, so it's very dry. So Al and I will try and stay safe as well.
I'm going to drink the water.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Thanks again, Al, and thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.